If you're struggling to understand the difference between animal versus plant protein, or you're finding yourself stuck in that battle between which protein source is best, this is the perfect video for you, okay? So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly the specific nutrients that animal proteins provide, and I'm also going to break down the specific nutrients that plant proteins provide. So the interesting thing about this is a lot of people will find themselves in one camp or the other. People will be very pro-animal protein, they'll be very pro-plant protein, right? The way I see this is that this is a ridiculous argument, and what we need to do is we need to understand that each source provides specific nutrients, and we can utilize each source to get the specific nutrients that it provides. So if we're doing this the right way and we want to have that protein forward and that protein prioritized diet, all we need to do is pair the two, all right? And there's some very specific benefits that we're going to get from animal-based, and there's some very specific benefits we're going to get from plant, and when we pair those two, we get incredible health benefits from that, okay? So let's get right into it. Interesting thing, or the important thing to understand about animal versus plant proteins is availability and the nutrient differences. So when it comes to bioavailability, that's like a fancy way of saying like, how easy is it for your body to digest? What's the digestibility of this protein? Animal proteins are typically a lot more bioavailable, meaning if I eat 10 grams of animal protein, I'm probably going to absorb at least 9 of those grams. If I eat 10 grams of plant-based protein, I may only be absorbing about 50 to 60% of that protein, so 5 to 6 grams. There's a significant difference there. And then also some of the nutrients can get caught up in plant proteins. They're not as bioavailable. So plant proteins are a little bit tougher to get the nutrients from. Animal sources typically a little bit easier, all right? So again, what we want to do is we just want to make sure we're creating that nice marriage of the two. Now, I am a little bit more of an animal-based protein guy, so I definitely think, and will review this, where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck is you're going to be able to prioritize those animal-based proteins. So from a protein standpoint, what we want, or the typical recommendation for a high performer, somebody who's looking to really max out on their physical function, they want to look, feel, and function incredibly, you're going to want to aim for between 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of your body weight. And I know what you're thinking. You're sitting there, you're doing the math. You're like, wait, I weigh 215 pounds. I got to eat 215 grams of protein? The answer is yes, okay? We are going to want to go heavy and high on the protein. We're not going to be able to do that in most cases with lentils and quinoa and beans, okay? You're going to be eating a hell of a lot of lentils and quinoa and beans. You're going to be very uncomfortable probably on the digestive system. So what's probably going to be a better way to get your 1 gram per pound of your body weight in protein is to really prioritize the animal sources, which is going to be our meat, our fish, our dairy, our eggs, and then we're going to build around that and we're going to support that animal protein intake with our plant-based sources. And there's a lot of various reasons why we want to do that to make sure that we're completing the nutrient profile, and that's exactly what I'm going to walk you through today. And one other thing that I wanted to review is that a lot of people really do believe that all of their nutrition comes more from vegetables and fruits and colorful foods, which we do get a lot of nutrients obviously from vegetables and fruits. But I think where people are missing the boat is they're misunderstanding how nutrient dense proteins actually are. You can pretty much get the large majority of your nutrient needs specifically from animal-based proteins. And then when you stack on or you pair that with plant-based proteins, now we can create a really nice nutrient profile where we're getting the large majority of your nutrition needs right there just through our protein choices, okay? That's not to say that you don't include vegetables and include fruits and include a lot of these different things that are very nutrient dense and very good for you in other ways. But what I'm saying here is that a lot of times people just think that protein is like this thing that we eat to try to build muscle. It's really not, right? This is something a lot deeper than that, right? This is something that provides a ton of nutrients, a ton of vitamins, a ton of minerals, and a ton of sustenance and nourishment for your body. And when you're lacking on proteins, you're going to be lacking on a lot of vital nutrients as well. And I think that's one thing that gets missed is that people don't put 2 and 2 together, that proteins are actually very rich in all these vital nutrients that we need. And if we're going to nourish our body and especially nourish our brain and our immune system and everything in the way that we want it to, if we're going to optimize our life, we need to include a significant amount of protein in our diet, all right? So that's a really important thing to understand. So now let's get right into it here, right? So we've got animal versus plant protein. I'm going to start with the animal proteins first, and we're going to work our way down. I think these are the main things that I would start with. Whenever I'm thinking about building a plate, I'm thinking about what do we need most? And in most cases, most of us need a little bit more protein. So we're going to want to think every time we sit down to have a meal, every time we sit down to have a snack, every time we're building a plate, what is your protein choice? All right, so we're going to walk you through that today. We're going to tell you why, going to tell you what, going to tell you how to get it in there, and we can build you a really nice diet that way. All right. So starting just with lean animal proteins, chicken, beef, bison, turkey. So we've got heme iron. So believe it or not, there's two forms of iron. There is heme iron, which is your animal-based iron. There is non-heme, which is your plant-based iron, okay? Heme iron is way more bioavailable than non-heme. So you are going to be able to digest and absorb and assimilate and utilize a lot more of the iron that you're getting from an animal-based source than you are from a plant-based source, all right? And this is obviously important because iron is essential for the transport of oxygen, okay? So when we're low on iron, we are low on oxygen throughout the body, your tissues, your brain, your organs, muscles, not getting enough oxygen. That is probably the last thing on planet Earth that you want from a long-term perspective, is to be low on oxygen, right? Since that is literally the thing that is creating life in your body. So we want to make sure we have adequate iron within the body. And then we've got some other really nice health supportive nutrients here. We've got our zinc, we've got our B vitamins, we've got selenium. And another one that I think a lot of people don't know too much about is that we've got creatine, okay? So believe it or not, we're getting creatine. Our body can produce some naturally, and then we're getting it from the animal-based proteins that we eat. We cannot get it from plants, all right? So creatine is one of these nutrients that's really starting to come into the light as something that's really beneficial, not only from a performance optimization standpoint, but also a mental health optimization standpoint, a brain health optimization standpoint, all right? They're starting to notice a lot of benefits from creatine. So obviously, when we have a diet that is low in animal-based proteins, we have a diet that's low on all of these nutrients, right? Iron, zinc, B vitamins, selenium, but we're also low in creatine, and that can be really negative, just like being low in any of these nutrients can, all right? So it's really important to understand the main things that you're getting from your animal-based proteins, because again, I think a lot of people get swayed in terms of like, are animal-based proteins good? Are they bad? Should I avoid them? And really, the long story short is that they're providing a lot of really great nutrients and a lot of incredible vitamins and minerals to the body, helping it thrive, helping it nourish. So it's not really something that I personally believe that needs to be removed or should be removed if we're trying to obviously have an optimized diet. So the interesting thing about this here is that from a physiological standpoint, these animal-based proteins are going to be best for muscle building, metabolism, and immune function. That is, I think, very important information to understand. Obviously, all three of these things are like the cornerstone of human health. We want to make sure that we're strong. We want to make sure that our metabolism is strong, and then we want to make sure that we are healthy and our immune function is functioning at its optimal level as well. Also, we can get some other really great nutrients in the mix here: omega-3s, B12, iron. All of these things are crucial for energy levels and also cognitive health. This is another really important thing to note, is that hopefully you're starting to see all of these kind of benefits are starting to stack up. So if you are more on the side of, hey, should I be limiting my animal-based protein? I'm hearing a lot about specific things, one way or another. I think honestly, if we're looking at kind of the benefits that it can provide, I think it's actually something we want to start to include more in our diet. And I'm very confident in saying, because I've literally looked at over 10,000 food logs over the last few years, which is like a ridiculous amount of food logs to be looking over. Most people are under consuming protein, right? So it's something that we get told we're over consuming and Americans are eating too much protein or whatever. But with all the thousands of people that I've worked with, all the tens of thousands of food logs that I've reviewed, typically most people are under consuming on protein and over consuming on carbohydrate and fat. And then the important thing to understand here is that these nutrients also support thyroid function. So that's where the selenium and the B vitamins and things like that are coming into play, and antioxidant defense. All right. So again, from an immune health standpoint, an anti-inflammatory standpoint, we really want to get these high quality proteins into the mix. I did want to include a little bit about like the fish and the seafood for this reason here, right? There are a couple important ones. So omega-3s, I think this is another nutrient that is really undervalued and underutilized. You're going to need to be eating a lot of salmon to be able to get the right amount of omega-3s to support your brain and your heart health and your anti-inflammatory systems. All right. So essentially, I think try to eat as much salmon as you possibly can, but also it's probably smart to supplement with a really really high quality omega-3 fatty acid supplement as well. With our omega-3s, obviously, now we've also got vitamin D, very hard to get in other places in the diet, so this is a really good reason to be including a little bit more fish. Iodine, people don't realize, but iodine is very important for thyroid health, okay? And obviously iodine, really the only place to get it is like iodized salt or products that are coming out of the sea, essentially. The more seafood and things like that you can eat, even seaweed salads, things like that, we can actually get more iodine in the diet, and that's going to really help from a thyroid health perspective. Selenium, another big thyroid nutrient as well, so we want to make sure we're prioritizing our fish for that reason. And then we've got more vitamin B12, which from like a neurological and just an energy system standpoint, we want to make sure we got plenty of vitamin B12 on board. So these are all like extremely important nutrients if we're going over the, the what, like what are these things supporting, what are they doing from a metabolism standpoint, a thyroid health standpoint, a brain health, a heart health, an anti-inflammatory standpoint. These are all really key micronutrients, and these are more specific. Like you're not going to see the omega-3s and the vitamin D and the iodine in other protein sources on this list. So that's why even if you're not a big fish person, I think it's really important to have an open mind. I've never been a big fish person. I actually started to put fish in the air fryer, and it's a world of difference. I highly recommend trying air fried fish if you're not a big fish person, but a good reason to maybe get a little bit in the mix, or if you're going out to restaurants trying some fish and things like that, because you can increase the variability of your nutrient density in your food, right? And if we can increase the variability in our protein sources and get more fish in, then obviously we get the opportunity to get more of these specific nutrients, which are so beneficial to the brain and to the body. And again, if we look through the physiological considerations, here we got it, right? Brain health, best for brain health, heart health, and reducing inflammation. Again, what more can we want? These are all systems that we want heavily supported. I don't think anybody wants less brain health, less heart health, or less reduced inflammation or more inflammation, right? Again, all more reasons just to consume a little bit more fish, prioritize that a little bit more. If you're like me or the majority of people that I speak with, people are eating a lot of chicken, a lot of turkey, some beef, really lacking in the seafood area, right? So that's definitely a place where you could start to prioritize. Did want to go over dairy a little bit as well. Dairy is one of these kind of tricky ones because a lot of people are avoiding it because they've heard that it's bad for them and they've heard that it causes inflammation and things like that. If you're looking at the body of the research, honestly, unless you are lactose intolerant, dairy should not be causing any inflammation. I would definitely say try to make sure you're getting really good quality sources of dairy. So getting organic dairy, getting ultra filtered things, right? There's definitely a quality, just like with any food, right? There's always a quality issue there with some stuff, but there's definitely some ways that we really want to take advantage of your dairy intake. And I used to be a guy that would say it's maybe not the best choice, and I'm actually starting to really turn the corner and think that just because of the nutrient profile that dairy does have, it's really beneficial in a lot of different ways that you're not going to be able to take advantage of in other places, right? So obviously that's what we'll review here, but calcium being a huge one, right? So from a bone strength perspective, dairy is the best place we're going to get calcium. So if you are somebody who's worried about their bone mineral density or anything like that, and you are not lactose intolerant, I highly recommend starting to get some dairy products into the mix here. Again, vitamin D, it's another excellent way to get your vitamin D, which is again a tough nutrient to get enough of in the diet. So if we're doing more fish and we're doing a little bit of dairy, we can really start to increase our vitamin D intake, which is an extremely important nutrient for a lot of different reasons. Phosphorus, this is a big one. These last two are huge. So phosphorus is a big one because this is another key contributor to bone health, all right? So I think a lot of people typically think that it's just like all they need is calcium and some vitamin D, and now all of a sudden they've got strong bones, but that's not the case. You're gonna need protein, you're gonna need calcium, you're gonna need phosphorus, you're gonna need vitamin D, you're gonna need vitamin K2, you're gonna need a multitude of other minerals, right? So this is what this dairy can provide, is it can provide a little bit more of a total package in terms of that bone mineral density, that bone building products, because it is going to have its protein, it is going to have the calcium, it is going to have the phosphorus, it is going to have the vitamin D, and all of these things are contributing to bone health. So to get that all wrapped up into one little package, which would be some dairy, is actually pretty impressive, right? And then here's one that people don't think about a lot, but probiotics, right? So if we're doing fermented dairy, if we're doing things like yogurts or kefirs or things like that, this can be really a game changer from a digestive health standpoint as well. So again, we've got all the bone health, and actually dairy is a great bioavailable protein for muscle building as well. So it's high in whey, it's high in casein. So it's got a nice little balance of the whey protein will digest and absorb quickly. The casein will digest slower over the course of time. So we get a more prolonged benefit from the protein protein that we're getting through dairy as well. And then we're getting that probiotic benefit, and we're getting the gut health from that as well, right? So we're getting bones, we're getting muscles, and we're getting gut health all kind of wrapped up into one little package here. Again, reason why, if you're not lactose intolerant, I do recommend starting to put some dairy into the mix if it's not already in there. I will preface it by saying this: we want to make sure we're going with typically like lower fat sources, okay? So we don't want to be consuming a lot of saturated fats through animal sources. So all of the proteins that I'm speaking about on this list, whether it's dairy, whether it's chicken or turkey or beef or whatever, always the leanest sources possible. So I would say low fat to no fat dairy, and I would say the leanest possible cuts of meat that you can find. These are the things that are going to provide all the benefits and none of the risks, which the risk would be the saturated fat content if we're over consuming fatty meats and full fat dairy and lots of cheeses and things like that. So if we just review it quick, right, we're looking at bone building, right? We're looking at gut health support. We're looking at muscle support. We're looking at brain health support, heart health support, anti-inflammatory support. There's a lot of really high quality benefits that we're getting here, right? So essentially, I just think like it's going to be really hard to beat all of those benefits. And also with that bioavailability being what it is and being so high, we're going to digest and absorb and utilize the large majority of the nutrients that we're getting through these proteins, okay? So it's not just about, hey, I ate 6 ounces of steak, I got 50 grams of protein. You've got iron, you've got zinc, you've got B vitamins, you've got all these great things that are supporting way more health benefits beyond just any kind of muscle building or whatever that you're getting from that. This is why we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of our animal-based proteins. All right, and then let's move down the line to plant-based. Okay, so plant-based, we're obviously looking here at like lentils, beans, quinoa, soy, right? Also, we got seeds, we got some seeds and stuff on the mix here too. So some of my favorite plant-based proteins, I really love lentils. It's got 18 grams of protein per cup of cooked lentils. So that's a really great way to jack up your protein intake and get some really variable nutrient benefits, right? Especially also with beans and quinoa, we're getting some really nice variability, some more different nutrient profiles in there. So if we can be pairing these two things, right? So we have a nice piece of steak or fish or chicken or whatever, eggs or something with now a plant-based source. Now we start to put everything together and put this puzzle together. So key micronutrients here that plant-based proteins are going to provide is going to be magnesium, which is incredible for a multitude of different reasons. Magnesium is responsible for over 300 different enzymatic reactions in the body. It's incredible for the brain. It's incredible for muscle function. It's incredible for relaxation, nerve function, energy production, you name it. Magnesium is going to have a big role in it. Okay, so we want to make sure obviously we've got adequate magnesium in our diet, and then we also get fiber, which from a digestive health standpoint is absolutely crucial. Okay, so you gotta have fiber in the diet. If you're trying to diversify your microbiome and make sure you're populating that thing with the best bacteria possible, you definitely want to make sure that you're doubling down on your fiber intake, recommending at least 25 plus grams for females and probably 35 plus grams for males, right? And there's a lot of ways we can do that and still add protein to the diet at the same time. And then folate, right? Folate's another really very important nutrient, and that's again a B vitamin, but you're going to get that always from plants, all right? So this is necessary for cell division, DNA synthesis, and like brain and fetal development, right? So we want to make sure that we've got plenty of folate on board, right? So this is again why we want to make sure that we're not only just prioritizing animal-based proteins, but we're getting these plant-based proteins into the mix as well, all right? There are some bioavailability issues though, right? This is the important thing to understand here with a lot of this stuff, because a lot of people think, oh, hey, plants have iron too, but sometimes some of those nutrients get trapped within the plant because plants are a little bit harder to digest and absorb in the body. With this non-heme plant-sourced iron, it has a much lower absorption rate, right? So it's down to about 10 to 15%, right? So there's some phytates and some oxalates and things like that within your plant sources that are preventing some of the digestibility of that iron, right? Plant-based sources also lack B12 and creatine, right? So from an energy-based standpoint, obviously this is not ideal. This is why we want to make sure that we've got adequate animal-based proteins on board, and then these things are taken care of and we're all set. And then plant protein also is incomplete, okay? So this is a really important thing to understand, is that one single protein molecule is made up of 20 amino acids, okay? So it's if we were building a fence, right? The fence would be the protein. And we had to put up 20 boards to build that fence, okay? We need all 20 boards to complete that fence, or the fence is not done, right? That's how I like to think about these complete proteins, right? So animal-based proteins, they already come complete. They've got all 20 of those amino acids. That fence is ready to go. You just got to stick it there and it's good to go. Now, with plant-based proteins, they're not complete. So they lack some of these amino acids. You might have 7 or 8 of these boards and you're missing the other 12 to 13. You may have 15 boards and you're missing 5. So what we can do is we can pair different plant-based proteins and get the full amino acid structure. So as we're seeing here, like a rice and beans, or you can pretty much pair like the majority of different plant sources and you can create these complete proteins, but it becomes difficult, right? Because you got to have a lot of different variability in there. You can do quinoa and beans, you can do lentils and brown rice, you can do lentils and beans, but the reality of it is it just takes a little bit more work. And then also the bioavailability, like I said at the beginning, is only about 50 to 60% from a protein standpoint. So if you're eating a bunch of plant-based proteins and say you have 10 grams of protein in there, you may only be digesting and absorbing about 5 to 6. So your body's only utilizing 5 to 6 of those grams and the rest is just getting wasted, right? From a muscle building standpoint, from a hitting your daily protein needs standpoint, plant proteins won't do it, right? Plant proteins are going to be something you want to rely on for other benefits, which obviously we'll talk about right here. The physiological benefits here for plant proteins is that they're definitely best for fiber intake and gut microbiome support, right? So if we want a healthy gut microbiome, we want to have the most plant foods possible. If we can get more of these plant-based proteins, our quinoa, our lentils, our beans, tofus, things like that, even nuts and seeds, right? These things are all really great and beneficial for the microbiome. And then the other things that we can get from here are also our magnesium and our folate. So it's not necessarily going to be as all-encompassing as the animal-based proteins are, but there's definitely some high-level things that we want to get from these plant-based proteins, which is why I think we prioritize the animal and then we support it with the plant. And if we can do that, then we've got ourselves a really nice profile. There is some really nice benefits from doing things like nuts and seeds. We can get some plant-based omega-3s, which is ALA. It is not as bioavailable. It is not the same as EPA and DHA. There's an extra step that your body has to go through to convert ALA into a usable, like an EPA, DHA, a usable omega-3. But however, it is very health supportive. So it's not something that we want to be lacking. Also, again, we're back to magnesium and the importance of that. Vitamin E, which is an incredibly powerful antioxidant that protects our entire body, cell membranes, whatever. Great sources of zinc, which is great for immune health, hormone production, wound healing. Zinc is one of those powerhouses. We want to make sure that it's on board. And then obviously we're back to our fiber, right? So supporting digestion, gut health, cholesterol regulation, fiber is the show. Like I think if there's anything that I always ask people to focus on from a dietary standpoint, it's protein, fiber, antioxidants. Those are the 3 big things, right? And we can get all of this from a protein forward diet, right? So nuts and seeds are incredible things to add. The key takeaways here from animal-based proteins is that they provide superior bioavailability of key nutrients, right? So we've got iron, we've got B vitamins, we've got the EPA, DHA, the fish oils, we've got calcium, creatine, and these things are going to be optimal for metabolism, energy, muscle function, and cognitive health. So all extremely vital functions within the body. So for those of you who are thinking, should I eat less meat? Do you want a less optimal metabolism? Do you want less energy? Do you want less muscle function and worse cognitive health? If that's the case, then yeah, take the meat out of the diet. But if you're looking for optimizing all of these things, then I think there's definitely a place for some really high quality lean animal proteins. And then from a plant-based protein standpoint, these are excelling in fiber, antioxidants, gut health benefits, but do require a little bit more strategic combinations, right? So we do have to be a little bit savvier with our diet if we're going to try to do more proteins from plants, okay? There is a little bit lower bioavailability of iron and of B12 and some of these essential amino acids, right? But at the end of the day, long story short is that both animal and plant proteins do offer very unique benefits. And I do believe that incorporating a variety of both is 100% the way to go. So again, it's not one or the other. You're not in one camp or the other camp. It's, hey, how do I build a really high quality diet that's going to optimize my life, optimize my health, optimize my energy and my function? That's going to be a heavy focus on animal proteins. That's going to be a heavy support system of plant-based proteins to go right along with those animal-based proteins. And from there, we can create a really nice nutrient-dense structure. And the reality of it is that we can get the large majority of our essential vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we need, all right? Besides vitamin C, you've really got everything taken care of there. So again, that's where the fruit and that's where the vegetables and that's where things like that will now sneak into play and fill those other cracks. But I still think that at the end of the day, we can build a really high quality diet centered around some good animal proteins, some good plant proteins. Hopefully you found that helpful, and we'll see you on the next one.